Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast. If you've been with us before, you know we don't do fluff. We don't do gimmicks. We sit down, we get honest, and we talk about what really matters after 60. But today is different. Because this isn't just another episode. This is the most important 60 minutes we've ever recorded. And maybe the most important 60 minutes of your entire life after 60. We've taken the best of everything we've learned so far, the most powerful lessons on sleep, memory, food, movement, aging, and independence, and we've put them all into one unmissable conversation. And leading that conversation, well, you already know him. He's become a fixture on this show. He's over 100 years old, still practicing medicine, still teaching, still thriving. And more than anyone, he understands what aging really means and how to do it with clarity, strength, and purpose. Dr. Shigeki Hinohara. Welcome back. I hope you are ready for this.
Thank you, John. I have never been more ready in my life. And to everyone sitting here in the studio and to the people listening from home, thank you as well for being here. This episode is special, not because it's long, but because it's complete. We're going to walk through the entire day. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and show you where your health is built or broken. No pressure, no shame, just truth. The chance to change. So if you've been with us before, thank you for coming back. And if this is your first time, you chose the right one to start with.
That really hit me, because so many people talk about aging like it's a slow fade, like the best years are behind us, like once you hit a certain number, the only thing left to do is manage decline. But if you've been with us for a while, you know that's not how we see it. And it's definitely not what we've seen from Dr. Hinohara. In fact, I can think back to so many moments from past episodes when he talked about how memory loss isn't just aging, it's missing nutrients, or how foggy thinking in the morning isn't just normal, it's a message, or how a simple 10-minute ritual at night can literally protect your brain from overnight decay. We've heard some big ideas on this show, but today, we're going one step further. We're not just talking about health in theory. We're walking through your day, moment by moment, together. From that very first second when your eyes open in the morning, to the quiet decisions you make as you drift into sleep. And what you'll hear today, what you'll feel today, could shape how you move, think, and live for the rest of your years. So let's begin right where the day starts. Dr. Hinohara. After treating tens of thousands of older patients, what's the very first moment in the day that you tell them to stop ignoring? What's the moment that matters more than people realize? And what should we do with it?
It's the moment most people rush through, or worse, the moment they feel but dismiss, that first 60 seconds after waking, because your brain is trying to talk to you. But instead of listening, most people grab their phone or swing their legs out of bed too quickly, or write off that grogginess, that clumsy hand, that dizzy pause as just getting old. But let me be very clear, those small signals, they're not just aging, they're clues. They're your brain saying, I'm struggling. And if we ignore them, we miss the chance to fix what's fixable. One of the first things I teach my older patients is this: pay attention to coordination, not memory, because before the brain forgets, it hesitates, the hand trembles, the toothbrush slips, the words come slower, the balance feels off just for a second. These are not accidents, they're not nothing, they're how cognitive decline starts. And the good news is, that means it's also where healing can start. If you notice these signs early, and you respond the right way, you don't just protect your brain, you give it room to repair.
That changes the way I look at mornings entirely, because we're taught to look for the big signs, forgetting names, missing appointments, getting lost in familiar places. But what you're saying is, by the time those happen, the real damage has already been done. The earlier signs, the coordination slips, the hesitation, the imbalance, those come first. And that means we can do something about it. So let's go deeper. We've talked about the first moment after waking up, but what about the first mistake? What's the most common thing people do in the morning that actually accelerates decline, especially after 60?
It's stillness, one word, but it's the foundation under everything else. Not peaceful stillness, not meditation or reflection. I'm talking about physical inactivity, waking up and then spending the next 90 minutes sitting on the bed, at the kitchen table, in front of the TV. No real movement, no blood flow, no signal to the body that it's time to start. And after 60, that signal becomes critical because your vascular system doesn't push blood as efficiently. Your blood is more prone to clotting, and your brain, more than ever, needs oxygen and nutrient delivery right away. But when you stay seated, especially in those first hours, you starve the brain of its most critical fuel, flow. And that's when everything else begins to slow down. Memory, mood, reaction time, balance.
Wait, so just staying seated for too long in the morning, that alone can impair brain performance?
Yes, it's the same pattern we see in post-surgical patients who, when left in bed too long, develop deep vein clots, fog, and rapid decline. And people assume, well, I'm not in the hospital. But that's the thing. You don't need to be in a hospital bed. A quiet kitchen chair can do it just as well.
That's something I don't think most people realize. We think of stillness as harmless or even restful. But you're saying it's actually signaling shutdown.
Exactly. And here's the science. A major study in circulation followed over 8,000 older adults. It found that those who spent more than 9 hours a day sedentary had double the risk of stroke, even if they exercised later in the day. Why? Because the morning window matters most. It's when your body decides, are we active or are we shutting down?
So what should someone actually do then, right after waking up?
Move. Within 15 minutes. Not a gym workout, not a long walk, just 5 to 10 minutes of gentle mobility. Arm circles, shoulder rolls, stretching, a walk to the mailbox. You're not training the body. You're waking up the brain. Because when blood flows, the brain thrives. And when the brain thrives, everything else follows.
That completely reframes the way we think about mornings. Because for so many people, especially after retirement, the early hours become slower, quieter, almost passive. A cup of coffee, a chair by the window, maybe the news on in the background. And on the surface, it doesn't feel wrong. But what you're saying is, those gentle habits may be sending the wrong message to the body, telling it to stay in rest mode when what it really needs is to wake up and circulate. So we've talked about movement. Let's go one step further, because the next thing people usually do, especially after 60, is eat. Dr. Hinohara, what's the most common food mistake you see seniors make in the morning? Something that feels normal, even healthy, but actually works against brain clarity and long-term energy?
It's sugar, and not just the kind you find in a cookie, but hidden sugar in health-tasty cereals, in flavored yogurt, in granola, in toast with jam or fruit smoothies. The problem isn't just the sugar itself, it's when you eat it. In the morning, your insulin response is delicate. Your brain is still shifting from sleep state to alert state. So when you flood the system with sugar, even natural sugar, you get a spike and then a crash. And that crash doesn't just affect your energy, it affects memory, coordination, and focus. It's why so many people say, "I always feel a little off mid-morning." They think it's age, but often it's breakfast. One study in the Journal of Nutrition found that older adults who started their day with high glycemic meals showed worse performance on memory and attention tasks compared to those who ate protein-rich or low-sugar meals. So the fix? Keep breakfast steady. Eggs, oats without added sugar, a slice of avocado toast. Even leftovers from dinner are better than a bowl of sweet cereal. Because how you fuel the brain in the first 2 hours sets the tone for the next 12.
That makes so much sense, because I've heard it from so many listeners. I'm fine when I wake up, but by 10:30 I feel cloudy. Or, I just had my breakfast, but now I can't concentrate. And for years, we've chalked that up to aging. But you're saying the problem starts not with age, but with what we put in our body before we even get going.
Exactly. Most people are sabotaging their brain by 8 a.m. and they don't even realize it.
Right. And what's worse is a lot of these foods are marketed as healthy. Low-fat yogurts, cereal bars, juice blends.
Juice. Yes, especially juice. Even orange juice. People think it's a healthy start, but it's just liquid sugar.
That's the tricky part, isn't it? Because once you hit your 60s or 70s, people start paying more attention to labels, but they're often looking at the wrong things. They see low fat or organic or made with whole grains.
And they miss the 18 grams of sugar sitting right in the corner. Or worse, they don't know that even natural sugars hit the bloodstream the same way.
And that crash, it doesn't just make you tired. It makes your mind slow down, your balance shift, even your motivation dip.
Yes. It's not just about energy, it's about decision-making, about alertness, about whether you feel like yourself for the rest of the day.
And I think that's what hits people hardest. Not just the physical changes, but that quiet loss of mental sharpness. When you feel like you're walking through fog, like you can't quite grab the words or follow the thread of a conversation.
Exactly, and if that happens enough times, you start to assume, this is just what getting old feels like. But it doesn't have to be. Most people just never had the chance to learn this, that the wrong breakfast doesn't just ruin your morning, it robs your brain of its fuel.
So if someone listening right now is thinking, okay, I've been doing all of that, cereal, fruit juice, flavored yogurt, where do I even begin? What would you say?
Start with one switch. If you normally eat cereal, try oats with cinnamon. If you love yogurt, go plain and add nuts. If you drink juice, try water with lemon and a pinch of sea salt. Little shifts, no guilt, but massive impact. Because remember, your brain is listening. Every bite is a message. And if you start your day with a message of stability, the brain responds.
Let's keep going. That's such a powerful way to frame it. Every bite is a message. Because so many people wake up and unknowingly send their body and brain into a panic, then spend the rest of the day wondering why they feel off, tired, heavy, unfocused. And the tricky part is, by the time you start to feel those effects, the damage has already started. So let's talk about that. There's this window between breakfast and lunch, that mid-morning stretch. It seems small, but I've heard you say before that this part of the day is actually very revealing. What are the signals that something's not right? What should people be watching for during those hours?
This is where the body whispers. And if you don't hear it, it starts to shout later. The number one thing to notice? Unnatural fatigue. Not tiredness from work or walking, but that sudden wave of heaviness around 10:30 or 11, where you feel like you could nap, even if you've done nothing at all. That's not normal aging, that's blood sugar crashing, That's circulation dipping. That's your brain saying, I didn't get what I needed this morning, and now I'm slowing you down to protect what's left.
And that's happening in people who think they had a normal breakfast?
Yes, and the worst part is, people start blaming themselves. They say, I must be lazy. I must be slowing down. Your body is just trying to stabilize itself after being thrown off the balance.
What are some other mid-morning signs?
Mood swings, irritability, trouble focusing, needing more caffeine than usual, even cravings, especially for sugar or more carbs. Those are not character flaws, they're system feedback.
So the body's not failing. It's adapting?
Exactly. It's adjusting to a lack of balance. But here's the good news. If you start your morning right, the mid-morning fog disappears. Your brain runs clearer. Your digestion steadies. Your cravings fade. I always tell my patients, if you feel like napping before noon, don't ask what's wrong with you. Ask what went wrong before 9 a.m.
That's such a shift. It's not about pushing through, it's about listening differently.
Yes, because your body always speaks. The question is whether you are ready to hear it.
And that brings us to the next phase of the day, the part most people coast through on autopilot, the early afternoon. Now, by this point, many people over 60 are already feeling it. The slump, the heaviness behind the eyes, the sudden lack of motivation, like someone turned the dimmer switch down on your entire system. And it's easy to assume it's normal, just part of aging. You've been up for a few hours, maybe you've run some errands, maybe not, but your body is already pulling you toward the couch, and your mind, it just isn't as sharp as it was that morning. But what if I told you this moment, this soft, hazy lull in the day, is one of the clearest windows into how your brain is really doing?
It is, and it's also one of the most dangerous windows if we're not paying attention, because what happens in the early afternoon is not just a reflection of age, it's a reflection of the systems we've set in motion earlier. If the brain didn't get what it needed in the morning, clean fuel, oxygen, movement, hydration, then by early afternoon it begins to conserve. It dials down cognitive function. It slows circulation to the extremities, and often it begins to shift you into a low-energy survival mode. Not because you're weak, but because the body is trying to protect what's left.
And we've all felt that. That moment where you're sitting in a chair and suddenly feel like you haven't moved in hours, where even basic decisions, like what to do next, feel strangely difficult. It's not quite exhaustion, not quite fatigue, but it's a pull, a heaviness. And if you don't interrupt it, it follows you into the rest of the day.
Exactly, and here's the part most people don't realize. This isn't just about what's happening in your body now. It's about what you're training your brain to expect every single day. The brain is incredibly adaptive, and if you slow down every afternoon, if you disengage, become sedentary, zone out, your brain starts preparing for that pattern long before it happens. You train it to dim, to conserve, to shut down.
So what begins as just one tired afternoon becomes a habit, then a routine, then a new baseline. And before long, you forget what clear even felt like. You can't remember the last time your mind felt light or focused or engaged at 3 p.m.
That's exactly what I see in so many older patients. They don't feel alarmed by it, because it crept in slowly. But when we go back and look at the patterns, we see the decline didn't start at 70 or 75. It started the moment the afternoons began to disappear into the fog.
What's amazing is how preventable that is.
It is, and what makes the difference isn't magic. It's not a supplement. It's not about fighting age. It's about breaking the pattern, giving your brain a different signal, telling it, even after lunch, even after 60. We're still here. We are still active. We still need you.
And that starts with noticing, not writing off that afternoon heaviness, not sinking into it, but recognizing it as a moment of choice.
Exactly. And once you recognize it, you can do something about it. That's how change begins. Not with big gestures, but with a shift in awareness.
And that's something I've heard you say so many times, Dr. Hinohara, that the difference between decline and vitality isn't always in the big things. It's in whether or not we notice the small ones.
Yes. And in Japan, this awareness of the small things, the quiet signals, has always been part of how we live. In the West, aging is often seen as something to be resisted, delayed, or fixed. But in our culture, we approach it differently. We observe, we adapt, we move with it, not against it. In many rural areas of Japan, especially in the older villages, you'll still find elders in their 80s and 90s who don't take afternoon naps, not because they're pushing through fatigue, but because they never created the pattern of needing one. After lunch, they step outside, they sweep the porch, they walk to the neighbor's garden. It's small movement, but it's purposeful.
And I remember you once told me that in traditional Japanese practice, the hours after lunch were considered a sacred space for circulation.
Yes, we call that period ma. It means pause, space, interval, but it doesn't mean stillness. It means awareness within the quiet. And this concept, though hard to translate directly, speaks to the heart of what we're discussing. After eating, we don't immediately rest. We allow the body to move gently. We let light touch the skin. We keep the blood flowing, so the energy doesn't collapse inward. It's not a workout. It's not exercise. It's rhythm. It's continuity.
And that movement, even if it's just putting away dishes, stepping outside, watering plants, it sends a message.
Exactly. It tells the brain, digestion is happening, but life is still moving. It's a signal of stability, of momentum. And over time, it protects not just the body's physical rhythm, but its mental one.
That's such a different way of thinking, because here, especially in modern life, we tend to shut down after lunch, sit for hours, turn on the TV, scroll through the phone. We think we're resting, but it's really a kind of slow collapse.
It is, and the body doesn't understand passive sitting as rest. It sees it as stagnation. And when that happens day after day, blood flow weakens, oxygen to the brain declines, posture suffers, and the spirit dims. We've studied this deeply in geriatric clinics in Tokyo. One multi-year study showed that older adults who consistently sat for more than 5 consecutive hours each afternoon, without light movement or standing breaks, experienced a 32% faster decline in cognitive flexibility compared to their more active peers. This wasn't a matter of physical strength. It was circulation, neurovascular response. It was the brain losing momentum.
And that's not something you feel all at once.
Number. It happens gently, which is what makes it so dangerous. One year it's, I feel tired in the afternoon. The next, I don't go out as much. Then, I forget what I was saying more often. It accumulates in silence.
So when people say they feel their age most strongly in the afternoon,
I tell them that, that may be the voice of routine, not age, and routines can be rewritten.
In Japanese culture, there's a reverence for nature, for the balance between light and movement. Do you think that connection helps keep the elderly more mentally active?
Without question, elders in Japan spend time outside not as an obligation, but as a rhythm. The sun touches their face. They watch the light move across the sky. They don't think of this as health, but it is health. Natural light regulates circadian rhythm. It stimulates serotonin, supports memory, and helps reset the brain after meals. And when you pair that with gentle movement, the brain reads that signal as vitality. It says, this person is still living, still moving forward, still needed. That's not poetic, that's biology.
It's so powerful to hear this through the lens of tradition, because it reminds us that the solutions don't always come from high-tech tools or extreme programs. They come from noticing, from returning to rhythm, from putting the phone down, opening the door, and letting the light hit your eyes.
Yes, health is not a sprint. It is the practice of noticing, and after 60, nothing is more powerful than the choice to stay engaged, to participate in your own day, with presence, not passivity.
That really stays with me, because when you describe it like that, the image is so vivid. A quiet home, the smell of a late meal in the air, the light softening across the room, and an older person stepping outside, not to exercise, but just to stay part of the rhythm of life. And it makes me realize how much we've lost in that respect. Because for a lot of seniors, especially here in the West, the early evening isn't a time of peace. It's a time of confusion, restlessness, even anxiety. The sun starts to go down, and something inside starts to unravel. Memories get fuzzy, emotions become more unpredictable, and the mind, which seemed clear enough earlier, suddenly feels like it's slipping sideways. It's subtle, but deeply unsettling. It's not like forgetting where you put your keys. It's more like forgetting how you feel, like losing your sense of place without ever leaving the room.
Yes, that time of day has a name in medicine. We call it sundowning. And while we often associate it with more advanced cognitive decline, the truth is, it begins earlier than people think. And in many cases, it isn't a disease. It's a pattern. It's what happens when the body winds down, but the mind hasn't been given direction. When the rhythms of light, food, movement, and reflection aren't there to anchor the brain. So it drifts, it loops, it reaches, and that reaching, that discomfort, is what so many people experience in those hours before bed. Not because something's wrong with them, but because something essential is missing.
So it's not a symptom of age. It's a signal that the day is ending, but the mind hasn't been guided to end with it.
Exactly. And that's where tradition becomes medicine, because in many older Japanese communities, we treat the transition to evening as sacred. There's a word for it, yu-yake. It means evening glow. It refers to the quality of light right before the sun dips below the horizon, but it also refers to a state of being, a willingness to be present with the closing of the day. And what that looks like is not dramatic, it's simple. An elder steps outside and watches the sun go down, even if just for a few minutes. They don't check a clock, they don't look at a phone, they just sit or stand and witness.
That image feels ancient and modern and human.
Yes, because it is. It doesn't require money or technology or health, only presence, only the choice to acknowledge the shift. And what that moment does, neurologically, is signal to the brain. We are safe. The day is ending. You may now begin to release.
But in the West, and I say this with humility because I've done it myself, we often skip that moment entirely. We move from activity straight into distraction, a television, a smartphone, the glare of artificial light. And instead of slowing down, we numb out.
Yes, and the brain doesn't register numbness as peace. It registers it as confusion. You go from fast-paced thinking to blank distraction, and the nervous system doesn't know what to do with that. It stays alert, tense, on edge, even as the body begins to quiet. That's the conflict. The body tries to sleep. The mind tries to escape, and instead of rest, we get restlessness.
So when someone says, I don't know why I always feel off in the evenings. I can't focus. I feel low. I don't feel like myself.
I tell them, your brain is asking for something you haven't been giving it. A gentle transition. A way to say, the day is done and I can let go.
And that can be something as small as stepping outside to feel the wind, or watching the light shift across the room, or sitting with a cup of tea and doing nothing but holding it.
Yes, and in Japan, we often serve something light in the evening, a small piece of fruit, a bowl of miso, not to fill the stomach, but to signal the end, to say, we're not chasing anymore, we're arriving.
That's such a different way of living. It's not just about health routines, it's about living with rhythm, with transitions, with presence.
And presence at the end of the day is the only real medicine. Because when you learn to end the day with peace, you teach the brain that it doesn't have to hold everything all at once. It can release, it can rest. And when the brain rests, the body heals.
That idea of release, that the brain needs to let go at night, it's something most people never learn. They think sleep just happens. You lie down, close your eyes, and the body does the rest. But what we're beginning to see, in research and in real life, is that sleep is not a switch. It's a descent. And the way you enter it shapes what happens inside of it.
Exactly. Sleep is not passive. It's the most active healing state the brain has. And the older you get, the more sensitive that process becomes. You see, in youth, the body can override mistakes. You can stay up late, stare at bright lights, eat poorly, fall asleep in front of a screen, and still wake up feeling decent. But after 60, the brain doesn't recover the same way. It needs help, it needs rhythm, it needs permission to heal.
So if we don't create that permission, if we go to bed with tension, with stimulation, with light and noise, what happens?
The body may sleep, but the brain does not recover. It skims the surface, it stays alert beneath the waves, and over time, that leads to deeper issues.
And I want to pause there, because so many people listening think, well, I sleep enough hours. I go to bed at 10, I wake up at 6. But what you're saying is, it's not about how long you sleep. It's about how deeply you sleep.
Yes, and that's where the science has become so clear. In older adults, it's not duration that protects the brain. It's quality, the depth, the architecture of the sleep. Whether you reach slow wave sleep, whether your glymphatic system, your brain's cleansing system, is activated. And here's the problem, most seniors are not getting that kind of sleep because their night is broken, not just once, but over and over.
What breaks it?
Too much light, too little melatonin, inconsistent bedtimes, late eating, and one of the most overlooked factors of all, nocturia.
The need to urinate at night.
Yes, it's one of the top 3 reasons older adults lose deep sleep. They fall asleep, enter the first stages, and then 2 hours in, they're woken by the bladder. And what's worse, it's not always urgent. Sometimes it's just habitual. The brain and bladder have formed a loop, and it robs the body of the sleep it desperately needs.
So you're saying, even if someone gets back to sleep afterward, it's not the same?
It's not. Because once you disrupt that slow wave phase, the deepest, most restorative stage, you don't just lose minutes. You lose repair. You lose memory consolidation. You lose the neurological housekeeping that protects the brain from decline.
There's that word again, protection.
Yes, because after 60, that's the goal. Not chasing youth, not chasing perfection, but creating the kind of sleep that protects what you still have and preserves what's trying to regenerate.
So when someone says, I get up twice a night, but I've always done that, You'd tell them that's not harmless.
Number, I'd say it's common, but not harmless, and that it deserves attention, because if you're losing deep sleep every night, you're not just tired, you're slowly losing cognitive strength. And the worst part is, it's preventable.
So what do you tell your patients?
First, we address the root causes: fluid timing, salt balance, evening activity. But most importantly, we retrain the relationship between brain and bladder. We remind the brain that the night is for healing, not interruption. And once that shift happens, everything begins to change. You wake up clearer. You remember more. You feel like yourself again. Not all at once, but gradually. Night after night, the brain begins to trust that it's safe to rest.
That line, safe to rest. I think that's what so many people are missing. They've gone years, sometimes decades, without that kind of rest. And they've forgotten what it feels like.
Yes, but it's still in them. The brain remembers. The body remembers. And with the right rhythm, the right support, and the right kind of nighttime, they can feel that restoration again.
That word, restoration, it feels almost unfamiliar now. We've gotten used to survival sleep, sleep that just barely gets us through the day. But real rest, the kind that renews your brain, calms your heart, lifts your emotions, that's become rare. And yet, it's still possible.
It is, but only when we understand what the body is trying to do at night and stop getting in its way. You see, true deep sleep, what we call slow-wave sleep, isn't just rest, it's repair. It's the brain's only chance to perform maintenance at a cellular level. And when I say that, I don't mean metaphorically, I mean physically. There is a system in your brain discovered only in the last decade that acts like a cleaning crew. It's called the glymphatic system, and it works like this. When you fall into deep sleep, your brain cells actually shrink slightly. That creates more space between them, a kind of an internal tunnel system. And through those tunnels, cerebrospinal fluid flows. It washes away waste products. It clears out beta amyloid, the very same protein that builds up in Alzheimer's disease. It filters inflammation. It refreshes the very space in which memory and cognition live.
And that only happens in deep sleep?
Yes, and only at night. The glymphatic system is inactive during the day. It only turns on in the dark when your brain is deeply at rest. And here's the part that changed everything for me. It doesn't activate unless you reach that slow wave depth. Light sleep is not enough. That's why I tell my patients, don't chase 8 hours. Chase depth, chase continuity. Because 1 hour of unbroken deep sleep can be more healing than 3 hours of light, fragmented rest.
That's a huge shift from how most of us think. We measure our nights by time, but the brain doesn't think in hours. It thinks in quality.
Yes, and let me give you a story. One of my patients, I'll call him Mr. Ishikawa, was 79 when he came to me. He said he was sleeping 7 hours a night every night, but he woke up every morning feeling like he'd been run over, foggy, anxious, struggling to find words. He told me, "My wife thinks I'm getting dementia." But when we looked closely, we saw the truth. He was waking up 4 times a night. Not for long, just a few minutes each time, but enough to break the cycle, enough to stop the glymphatic system from completing its work. We made small changes, adjusted his hydration, changed his light exposure in the evening, introduced a breathing practice before bed, and within 6 weeks he was waking only once a night. By 8 weeks he was sleeping through the night, and by the 3rd month he told me, "I feel like someone polished my brain."
That's such a powerful image.
It is, and it's not rare, because when you give the brain what it needs, it responds even after years of poor sleep, even after years of cognitive decline. Neuroplasticity doesn't disappear, but it depends on rest. Without deep sleep, the brain cannot change.
And what about dreams? We've talked a lot about slow-wave sleep, but what happens in the second half of the night, when REM begins?
That's where emotion lives. That's where memory becomes meaning. During REM, rapid eye movement sleep, the brain replays emotional experiences from the day. But not randomly, it reorganizes them, it softens the charge, it places them into context. This is why people who are grieving or going through stress feel worse when their sleep is interrupted, because the brain never gets to finish its emotional work. It holds onto the unprocessed feelings, and those feelings begin to weigh the person down day after day.
So when someone wakes up anxious, even if nothing is wrong, it might be because their brain never finished dreaming.
Yes, dreams are not just fantasies. They're a kind of neurological therapy. And when you rob the brain of REM, you rob yourself of resolution.
It makes you wonder how many people are walking around carrying unfinished nights inside them.
I'd say millions, and it doesn't have to be that way, because even small changes can restore the cycle.
Do you have another story? Maybe someone whose dream sleep came back?
Yes, a woman named Midori. She was 83, very independent, but struggling with low mood and irritability. She didn't understand why. She said, "I'm healthy, I eat well, but I feel like I'm always about to cry." We tracked her sleep for a month. She was getting hours, but almost no REM. Every time she started dreaming, her body temperature would spike, or a small noise would wake her. She never stayed in that second half of the cycle. We made gentle changes, cooling her bedroom slightly, adjusting her meal timing, reducing evening stimulation, and then, for the first time in years, she had a full night of REM. She told me she dreamed of her husband, who had passed, and she cried, but she said it was a good cry, a healing one. That day she smiled for the first time in weeks. She said, "I didn't know how much I was holding."
That's what makes this so human. It's not about data. It's about giving people back the parts of themselves that were slowly being lost.
Yes, and sleep, real, deep, natural sleep, is how we return to ourselves. It's how we heal without effort. It's how the brain says, "I'm okay now," and when the brain says that, everything else follows.
And I think that's what so many people are quietly searching for. Not just more energy, not just more clarity, but a sense of return, of waking up and feeling, "I'm here again. I know who I am."
Yes, and the beautiful part is, you don't have to fight for that feeling. You don't have to chase it. You just have to prepare the night.
Because the night doesn't begin when you close your eyes.
It begins 2 hours earlier. That's when the brain starts asking, are we safe? Are we ready? And depending on the signals it gets, it either prepares to heal or it prepares to defend.
And the signals are what? Light? Sound?
Light is the biggest one, especially artificial light. Blue light from screens, overhead bulbs, even the reflection off your phone. To the brain, that light says, stay awake, stay alert, the sun is still up. It shuts down melatonin, and without melatonin, the whole rhythm falters.
In Japan, how do you approach that period before sleep?
We keep the lights low, we move slower. Many elders still follow the komorebi principle, the idea that filtered light, like the kind that passes through leaves or paper lanterns, is calming to the nervous system. In my home, we use lamps with warm, low light, nothing bright, no screens, just a small ritual, a warm towel, a change into fresh sleepwear. Not because we have to, but because these rituals tell the body, The day is over.
And what about temperature?
Very important. Your body needs to cool slightly in order to enter deep sleep. That's why hot rooms or even heavy blankets can disrupt slow wave entry. We recommend a bedroom around 18 degrees Celsius, about 64 degrees Fahrenheit, and using light layers that breathe. In old Japanese homes, people used to sleep close to the floor on tatami mats. The earth kept them cool. It wasn't scientific, but it worked. Today, I recommend simple adjustments. A cooler room, a window open if possible, and no heavy meals too close to bed.
You've talked before about how even a small rise in temperature, just 1 or 2 degrees, can interrupt the body's natural descent.
Yes, it might not wake you fully, but it fragments the sleep architecture. You drop out of deep sleep. The brain senses discomfort. It stays slightly awake, even if you don't realize it.
And sound?
Another hidden trigger. Most people think they need total silence. But the truth is, what the brain needs is predictability. In Japan, many older people sleep with soft nature sounds, the wind, a bamboo fountain, even just the hum of the night. It's not silence that protects sleep. It's the absence of suddenness. A car door slamming, a dog barking, a television in another room. Those things pull the brain out of the healing. So I recommend something constant. A fan, a soft audio loop, just enough to hold the space.
So many people feel powerless when it comes to sleep, like it's out of their hands. But what you're describing is a way to meet the body halfway.
Exactly. You're not forcing sleep. You're creating the environment it needs to return to you.
And for those who've had years of broken sleep, who feel like it's too late,
I tell them, the body forgives, the brain forgives. But you have to make the first move, even if the changes feel small. 1 less light, 1 slower evening, 1 cooler room. Every signal counts, and the body listens.
and as the night reaches its final stretch, something remarkable begins to happen. It's subtle, almost invisible. But inside the brain, a shift is taking place. Melatonin begins to ease off. Cortisol, the awakening hormone, begins to rise. And without ever opening your eyes, the body starts asking, "Is it morning yet?"
Yes, the body begins to search for light. Not visual light, not yet, but ambient cues, temperature, sound, rhythm. It's a process that takes time, and it matters how we treat it.
Because if we rush that moment, if we interrupt it too harshly,
then the brain never finishes what it started. It leaves its work undone, and that's when people wake feeling foggy. Not because they didn't sleep, but because they didn't finish sleeping.
So this moment, just before waking, it's not passive?
No, it's a continuation of healing. In fact, some of the most important hormonal activity happens in those last 90 minutes before natural waking. Testosterone, growth hormone, the brain's final sweep of toxins, the nervous system's return to balance.
And yet, most people interrupt that window. They wake to an alarm, they check a phone, they swing their legs out of bed and try to force the day into motion.
Yes, and especially for older adults, that shock is dangerous. It causes blood pressure spikes, vascular stress, even dizziness and cognitive lag.
I remember you told me once, the older body needs to rise like the sun, gradually.
Exactly. In Japan, many elders still rise with the sun itself, or just before it. They wake not to noise, but to light, soft, indirect light. They sit for a few minutes, they stretch. They give the brain time to reorient.
It's a practice of gentleness.
Yes, and in that gentleness, the brain feels safe. It says, "We're not rushing. I can come back fully."
And when someone skips that,
they pay the price, maybe not right away, but over time, the brain begins to resist the mornings. It associates waking with stress, and the nervous system stays tight for hours.
It becomes a kind of fog that lasts till midday. We hear about it all the time. I'm just not a morning person anymore. But maybe that's not about personality. Maybe that's about how we're waking up.
That's exactly what it is. The body still wants to rise, but it wants to be invited, not dragged.
So what do you tell your patients?
I ask them to start simply. No alarms, if possible, or at least a soft chime, something natural. No screens for the first 15 minutes. Let your eyes adjust to the world slowly. Breathe. Sit upright before standing. Drink water. Let the body remember who it is.
And over time,
mornings become clear again. The fog lifts, the brain stops bracing, and begins to anticipate the day with calm. Not excitement necessarily, but readiness.
And that readiness, that subtle morning clarity, it changes everything. Because when the day begins with presence, it doesn't matter how old you are. You're not reacting, you're directing. You're choosing how to move forward.
And that, I tell my patients, is the quiet power of aging well. Not force, not resistance, but rhythm, ritual, and return.
That last idea about rhythm and return, I think it brings us to something deeper. Because aging, for so many people, feels like a slow erosion of control, like you're losing the reins of your own life. But what you've shown us is that even after 60, 70, 80, there are still rituals that restore agency, still moments we can direct, still choices that say, this day belongs to me.
Yes. And that's what I tell people who feel like they're fading, who say, I used to be as sharp. I used to feel like myself. I say, you haven't lost yourself. You've just forgotten how to return. And that return begins with rhythm and continues with movement.
And this is where your approach really shifts. Because for a long time, people believed that once you lost strength, once you lost muscle, that was it. But you're saying the body can still respond?
Absolutely. The body after 60 is slower to adapt, but not unable. And the secret isn't in heavy training or extreme diets. It's in re-establishing daily signals that say, I still need this muscle. I still need this brain. I am still using this life.
And movement is that signal.
It is. But not just any movement. It must be deliberate. It must be felt. A slow walk taken with awareness will activate more systems than an hour of distracted pacing.
So let's say it's mid-morning now. The sun is higher. The day has begun. What are the most powerful things a senior can do right then to reset their biology?
First, move, but not like an obligation, like a greeting. In Japan, many elders begin their day not with exercise, but with kaiteki taiso. It means comfort stretching, movements designed not to build strength, but to restore circulation and invite the joints to participate in the day. Neck rolls, shoulder swings, heel raises, even a few steps taken with the hands behind the back, like the old philosophers. This is not to burn calories. It is to tell the vascular system, we are awake. We are engaged. We are not shutting down today.
It sounds so simple, but also so dignified.
Yes, because dignity doesn't come from youth. It comes from presence. And movement done with presence, at any age, is a statement of dignity.
What about food? You've said before that the first meal after waking holds more weight than people think.
It does, because after sleep the brain is hungry, not just for energy, but for signal. When you eat, your brain asks, what kind of day are we having? One of stress, of sluggishness, or of steadiness, strength? And the food answers.
So if someone starts their day with sugar,
the brain prepares for volatility, blood sugar spikes, cortisol rises, then comes the crash, memory falters, energy dips. and suddenly you're chasing the day, not leading it.
But if the meal is stabilizing,
then the brain feels steady. It senses safety. It says, we can focus now. We can repair. We're not in survival mode.
And in Japan, what does that look like? That first nourishing meal?
Traditionally, it's not sweet. It's not heavy. It might be miso soup, a bit of rice, pickled vegetables, a boiled egg, or grilled fish. Small amounts, balanced. The idea is not to fill, but to support, to nourish the blood, to prepare the brain, to ease the gut.
And all of that, the movement, the food, the sunlight, the pacing, it becomes the body's way of saying, I am not fading today, I am participating.
Yes, and this is how I see aging now. Not as loss, but as refinement. You don't need more effort, you need more precision, more intention, and when you live that way, the day responds, the body responds, and even the brain, after years of silence, begins to speak again.
That really stays with me, because I think about all the seniors listening, the ones who've watched every episode, taken notes, maybe even cried at times, and I imagine them sitting in their kitchens or walking slowly through the park, saying to themselves, I remember who I am. Because that's what this has been, hasn't it? Not just a podcast, not just ideas, but a remembering.
Yes, and a returning to rhythm, to agency, to small choices, to the dignity of being present in your own life. And for many, for perhaps the first time in decades, to the belief that their body still wants to heal.
And it's powerful, because it's not just theory. You've seen this in your patients.
I have. I've seen men and women in their 70s, 80s, 90s walk in with fear in their eyes and walk out months later standing taller, not because they became young again, but because they stopped being afraid of growing old.
That might be the most important thing we've talked about, because there's so much fear around aging, fear of decline, fear of memory loss, fear of becoming irrelevant. But what this episode has shown is that aging isn't the problem, it's disconnection.
Yes, disconnection from rhythm, from nature, from the body's signals, from community, from ourselves.
So what would you say to the person listening right now who still feels like it might be too late?
I'd say this: you are not broken, you are not behind, you are not too late. You are simply out of rhythm, and rhythm can be restored. The body still hears you, the brain still listens, and every small act of care, every movement, every meal, every gentle evening is a way of saying, I am still here.
And we've seen this, not just in studies, not just in theory, but in the quiet triumphs of people who chose to believe it wasn't over.
Yes, and I'll tell you, some of the strongest minds I've ever met weren't in their 20s, they were in their 80s, because they had lived long enough to stop proving and start being. And when a person finally starts being, the body takes a deep breath, the brain says, thank you, and healing begins.
That feels like the right place to end. But before we go, I just want to say something to everyone listening. If you've made it to the end of this 60-minute journey, you're not just curious, you're committed, and that means something. So whether you're 61 or 91, this path is still yours to walk. You still have pages to write.
Yes, and every day, every sunrise is an invitation to return. Return to rhythm, to care. Return to yourself. Take care of the day. And the years will take care of themselves.
I think this is where we close the most complete, most heartfelt episode we've ever shared. It's been a true privilege walking through this with you, and I hope you felt every minute of it as deeply as we did. To everyone listening, thank you. You are the heart of this movement. Let's keep learning, keep connecting, and keep proving that growing older can also mean growing stronger in spirit, in wisdom, and in health. Like, subscribe and share this with someone you care about, because together we're building something that matters. Until next time.